And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all so much for joining us here on this Wednesday evening. If it happens to be one of your favorite places to catch sports shows later on in the week, we are one of the only and, many sports shows that, we haven't been canceled yet. We're going to try and keep it that way as well, too. So this is DJ joined, as always, by my co-host, Kelsey. And you know what, Kelsey? We've had a pretty good time. So we haven't been canceled yet. We haven't got too far to line. Our ticket sales are just fine. Not showing up in any investigations. I'd say it's been a pretty good run so far. It's been a pretty good week for at least half of us.
Yeah, and I'm not reportedly trying to go to New York, so at least that's one Kelcey that's not trying to go to New York. So hey, we're there too. It's a good week. I hate watched the All-Star game this weekend, and I gotta say, it was all right. Like the game itself, like the games were good. I could have cared less for Saturday night though. I think it's done. I think All-Star Saturday night's finally done.
That's what I was initially going to lead the show with, but my brain shut off too. Is and say we are the one sports podcast that thinks that going back to East and West is just the way to probably do it. And the only way that the All-Star game is going to return is there's nothing the commissioner of the NBA can do. The guys just got to go out there and hoop. That's all there is to it.
And shout out to Wemby and the rest of the guys that came out in that first game and actually showed up. Like that set the standard for the rest of the night. Like the game itself was good, but that All-Star Saturday dunk contest, 3-point shootout. It's fun watching a guy score 30 for a 3-point shootout, but like at the same time, like I want a real dunk contest.
I want a different kind of 3-point contest too, where it really comes down to where it feels like every shot matters too. I want it to just be a little bit more nip and tuck, and we'll see. Every year we were always hopeful. I still think the USA versus the world versus the stripes is very weird. I didn't really love that. Like it wasn't bad that first
and world.
And then meanwhile, 3 of the 5 best players weren't able to play on top of it, so it wasn't even quite the same. Like that first game was, I think, my favorite game of them all because it went to overtime, and you saw Wemby, you saw Ant, you saw Cade, not playing defense, but at least playing offense and like playing efficient offense too. So that's why. Let's just go back to East and West. It's on the players. If they don't want to play, they don't want to play. Right? There's nothing you can do about it. No matter how many changes you do, you can't really change that.
Yeah, that's fine with me. But yeah, I hate watched it. So you know what? I did that, and I opened up some of my old baseball cards and put them in a pack. So you'll see those on one of our channels here soon. But that's what I did my weekend. So you know what? I at least didn't get indicted. I didn't look at New York. I didn't do anything like that. So we're doing good for ourselves.
Guess nope. Going to keep the gripping and ripping comments myself as you went through all the baseball cards, but definitely keep an eye out for those because there's some surprises in there as well. But you know what? There's a few other surprises that could be monetarily worthwhile as well, as that'll take us into the first part of our show. That is the tip-off brought to you by our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code Belly Up Sports for $20 off your first purchase, whether it's sporting events, concert tickets, festivals, anything that requires tickets. Use code Belly Up Sports for $20 off your initial purchase. And speaking of moves that are saving money, Kansas City, well, they were not doing so well financially, and well, now they are because they've restructured Patrick Mahomes' deal to save $43 million on this year's cap space. So they're going to go from negative 57 to just minus 14. You know what? Not good by any means, but considering you were by far the worst in the NFL, now you're just towards the bottom of the NFL cap space. But I think it's good for the Chiefs. We kind of knew it was going to come. That's part of the reason they gave him that insane 10-year contract worth all that much because they knew they could keep this left a lot of leeway. They got holes to fill. Patrick, we'll see how healthy he is coming forward, but it makes all the sense in the world. They're going to have to do some more moves to even just get back to cap acceptable at this point. But if you want to bring back Travis, you got to rebolster around that team just a little bit, especially on the defensive side, and a little bit. You got to keep and just need some playmakers that can stay out of trouble or just stay on the field, as we will say. We'll include the injuries in there as well, and that includes running backs, receivers. It's much overdue, but they still got a whole lot of work to do if they want to return to being Kansas City, I believe, especially with Patrick coming off that injury.
Yeah. Look, with Patrick's restructure, obviously we all talked about the $1 billion guy being Patty. Obviously, that's kind of a billion. Yeah, it's kind of a overstatement, but it's honestly how much he's worth for Kansas City, for the Chiefs. The problem is it means nothing if you can't protect him, if you don't have receivers to throw to, if you don't have running backs to hand the ball off to. You don't have a defensive line to go along with that. You don't have a linebacking core that's healthy. If you don't have safeties that are going to help you out, like it's great to have a guy like Patty on your squad, and it's a great face. but you got a whole lot of questions coming up this year of guys you have to re-sign unless you really, really trust the belldozer to be your number one tight end. And you really, really trust a guy who can't stay out of legal and injury issues to stay on the field. And then you got Xavier Worthy. So at least you got that.
Who needs to stay on the field?
You need to get him healthy again. But you still need running backs. You know, like, are you going to keep going to the Kareem Hunt well at this point in time? What do you? Isaiah Pacheco can't stay healthy. What are you going to do? Your offensive lineman can't stop false starting, can't stop holding. It's going to be this is a great first step for the Chiefs in the offseason for making themselves competitive again. But man, that like you made one step of 20 and you got to get those next 20. Now, granted, this is probably the first, like the big one. So you can do that, but it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. And who knows, maybe there's a reunion or two in the future for the Chiefs.
Speaking of reunions, there one potential reunion that could come out of this one is Tyreek Hill has been released by the Dolphins as he will be getting to free agency. And we already kind of know the favorites. The betting odds have him going back to Kansas City. It makes all the sense in the world on paper. Reunited, where he was so dynamic, so dominant, comes back to end his career where he started. Chase another ring, dynamic speed, which I guess the Chiefs do have that, but it's not quite like utilized properly. Speed. Well, it's utilized. Not effective game-breaking speed.
He's not on the field.
Exactly. And when Xavier Worthy is out there, he's not the same level of receiver as Tyreek is. He is a game breaker in open space, but Tyreek gives you the ability to get open and to separate and actually play a true receiver and someone for Worthy to learn from as well. However, in the same vein, he is the most explosive receiver of all time as far as speed, agility, etc., coming off his knee, getting completely exploded. I think it is his knee, his ankle, everything just exploding. And he's 31 going on 32 years old. Like, that's a lot to ask that body to recover when you're so naturally explosive. So we'll start with, how do you expect him to come back next year? And do you think we'll say the Chiefs are the favorite? Let's find another team besides the Chiefs for him, because that one's already the favorite in the clubhouse. So we'll find another team. But I expect him to be fine. He'll start the season really slow and rusty, but I think by the back half of it, he'll be 85% of what he had been before, which is still one of the 10 fastest guys in the league that still terrifies safeties and still demands a too high or over the top look. So I think he will be fine for at least like the back half of next year, maybe one more year after that. I don't think his career's done. He's just not top 5 anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So he's coming back from dislocated knee and torn ACL. Anybody remembers that week 4 game? So he's pretty much out until week 1, 2, if you're lucky. Week 3, 4, if you're still lucky. Week 6 is probably closer to say,
start on the IR.
Basically, whatever your bye week is, pretend that's going to be when he comes back. So that's something that to keep in mind with him. And it's nothing against that. Like, you can recover from ACL injuries faster than ever. We saw it in the Olympics, and it also went horribly wrong there too. I have a lot of experience with coming back from ACL injuries, so maybe I'm a slight expert on this. Unfortunately, I was never that fast, though, so I don't know what it impacts your speed. I was always slow, so I'll still be slow. But I do know for fast people, it does mean you have to be careful when you're running because you're not as comfortable on that leg, especially if it's your plant leg, especially if it's your back leg for a receiver or front leg for a receiver. Depends on which way you put your first step. There's a lot of questions that come with Tyreek, who's a speed guy, who is also a receiver. You need to have that speed to be effective because he is not as good of a receiver as somebody who is slower than him at the end of the day. He is a good receiver with his speed, but he's not a good receiver who is also fast, if that makes sense. Like, he is a speedy receiver who uses his speed well, and that's how he gets open, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that, but speed does eventually go away. As far as teams that, he can go with, honestly don't even know if Chiefs are the best option for him. I mostly make that joke just because it would be hilarious. I look at somebody, I don't know, maybe like a Pittsburgh, somebody like that, or if you go to the other side of the country, you look at maybe somebody like one of the Los Angeleses, a Chargers potentially, a Rams. I mean, we all know Stafford could use somebody that's that fast. We all know Justin Herbert could also use somebody that's like that can use his speed effectively as a receiver, because he has a guy who has speed, but he doesn't have a guy who has speed and is a good receiver. It's like a whole weird thing. So, but yeah, I think he's going to I think he's going to, if he's staying on the East Coast, it's probably like a Pittsburgh to me or New York Jets. If he's going on the West Coast, it's one of the LA teams. Take a pick. You probably got a good option, and they both love to run the ball. So it's like, You run on that play action pass, Matthew Stafford will get you open, or Justin Herbert will get you open with the ball. Don't worry about it. But I don't know. He's got a long road to recovery, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he's put on a roster and immediately put on IR, or doesn't see a roster until after week 6 or so.
I will say that the Chargers one would be fun because you get the Mike McDaniel reunion where that's his most explosive seasons. Plus, you get the Justin Herbert factor, just he out there somewhere, and I don't have to slow down at all. Not just because I'm a little slower, it's because he's putting it out there. So I think that would be fun. And you get the Chiefs twice a year for better and for worse. But I think a few of the teams I kind of weirdly like. I really kind of like the idea of him staying in the division and going to the Bills because they don't need to rush him. They do need receiver help. It is very clear because the owner and staff left behind clearly don't care for Keon Coleman very much. Or if they do, they have a weird way of showing it. Khalil Shakir is very nice, but he's a very good receiver. He probably shouldn't be your number one option all across the board. He does some things very well. It's kind of like the Deebo Samuel thing. He's very good. Like he's a diet Deebo Samuel, which is not an insult. It's just he works better if you have a true receiver opposite him.
He's too small to be a full Deebo.
And that's true. He's too not thick enough. Doesn't got 3 C's of thick with him. Are you going to keep going back to the Gabe Davis well? I highly doubt that. Kincaid is awesome, but he can't stay healthy. Dawson Knox is solid too. So I think Tyreek Hill could be very useful there. Just the Bills are going to win games regardless, most likely with Josh Allen, James Cook, and squad. So you can take your time. He's going to be there to hopefully get them over the hump. And Allen and Tyreek, I mean, that just sounds like fun. Like this is what Madden 2021 and 22 were built off of for the people who created their own teams. It's dangerous. So I love that one. The weird undercover one. This is if no one else shows any interest, really. This is like a last option. Him on the Raiders could be interesting. You bring in Mendoza, and you have 0 receivers out there. Brock Bowers is your tight end and he's your number 1 receiver. He has to be your number 1 at both positions. And not just because he's that good, because he is, but by default. Or he has to be receiver 1 and Michael Mayer has to play tight end. However you want to split it. They need somebody to catch the ball for Mendoza. They need somebody to throw the ball to. Even if Tyreek Hill is 75% of what he's his best, 60%, let's say he comes back and he's a 4-5 guy instead of a 4-2 flat guy or whatever, still better than anything the Raiders have to offer right now at the receiver position. It gives Mendoza a chance to come in there. Presumably he'll be there. He's 80-1 odds favored to be there, so we're presuming so. It gives him at least a veteran receiver that can make plays, unless they're going to trade for DJ Moore or something, but that's another story. So I think just going somewhere where he could be useful, and then he can sign that 1-year deal, be like, all right, guys, I'm back. Have a great back half of the season, then go get the big money. But I think he'll have options for sure. It's just not going to be the big money options, which Dolphins got him covered. They still owe him money. I think he's good.
Yeah, look, at 32 years old, you'll accept not getting the big money offer anymore if you've already gotten that big contract. You're fine. Also, coming off this big of a knee injury, you just need somewhere you're going to be comfortable with for the next year. And don't be surprised if there's like a dark horse in there, like the New York Giants, like somebody we didn't even bring up, but who has 2 guys as well. Like they have Darius Slayton, they have Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors coming off injury. They have Jackson Dart there, and Jackson Dart can just throw it up like the best of them. So who knows? Maybe Harbaugh just feels like, you know what? We don't get Tyreek back until week 6, week 7, week 8. We get Malik back week 2. All right, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with the Malik, Darius Slayton, Tyreek Hill trio.
Wandale Robinson.
Yeah, throw Wandale in the mix, like scat in the backfield, Jackson Dart. That just sounds a lot sillier and a lot more fun. And if Nate's listening, I'm sorry if I'm giving you hope. It's probably not going to happen. But at the same time, who knows? Who knows what the changes to coaching staffs? Who knows what the changes and the younger quarterbacks coming up? There's so many different pieces and parts of this that we just don't really know. And we won't really know until we see Tyreek start to run again what that looks like. And obviously, the rumor mill will start in June and July as far as how healthy he is and him running and practicing and stuff. But until we actually see him on a field, I'm not holding out hope.
Throw one more in there for fun. San Francisco needs receiver help. They were just short of throwing me out there with the electrical substation tomfoolery. I was about to get the call. You bring him in there. Brandon Ayuk's probably not going to play there again by all intents and purposes. So they need some help there. Ricky Pearsall, sometimes very unfortunate luck. Other times football injuries. Other time what the hell just happened, has not been on the field very often for him. Juwan Jennings almost got Super Bowl MVP and then has been very injured since then. So I think they could
and became most hated man in the NFL recently.
Yeah, who would have thought, right? So I think there is some there's some room there as well. But let us know down below where you all think would be a good fit for Tyreek Hill going into next season. We're now transition from the NFL into the NBA, where once again horniness gets in the way of greatness because Tony Clark is stepping down as the MLBPA. You know what? Let's just get into it. Yeah. Basically, resigned as union isn't ideal, but they vow that it will not weaken the group's resolve or as the upcoming labor negotiations with the MLB. So once again, perfect timing, right? You can't play. Maybe Shooter Sanders was onto something. It just wasn't for him, but it was quite something else. The sister-in-law scandal leaving them scrambling. We're just going to kind of get a little bit into it down here. More or less, how do we want to put this politely? Yeah, the man let a boner completely ruin his marriage, his family life, his job, and just about everything going on right now. So, yeah, you know what? This is a talk about bad timing and a bad situation all at the same time. So they say don't expect anything to change in terms of bargaining, but I don't know about that. That's a big position to lose a big name like that. I think MLB is going to be in a weird spot for these negotiations because they always are in a weird spot. And it was already expected to be a weird spot with a potential lockout. Now it feels like it's going to either be all but inevitable or one side's about to get badly hosed.
Yeah. So first of all, Tony Clark, former MLB player, Tony Clark. So former professional baseball player who is used to traveling 65% of the season anyways and staying away from home anyways, happens to get in trouble with infidelity. Surprise, surprise to nobody who watches baseball and knows baseball players. I mean, it's a very rare baseball player who is able to stay committed to their family for a long time. It's a very special baseball player who does that. So that doesn't surprise me in the least. Good news for the PA. Bruce Meyer has been the deputy executive director who is going to be replacing interim, whatever you want to call him. He is a very interesting point to replace him. He's always played a major role in negotiations, so he's still going to be playing that major role in negotiations. It's always works this way for union people or for people who don't know how unions work. It's not always the president of the union that's involved directly in negotiations. Sometimes it's counsel, sometimes it's vice president, sometimes it's secretary treasurer. In this case, it was a lot of the executive director and deputy executive director and Bruce Meyer. So, yeah, he's the guy. He's already been talking about it. So there you go. Publicly will deny because that's how it goes. But at the end of the day, he's a guy that when it comes for the PA players, he's going to be there for the players. And that's the most important part. Sometimes when you have former players as the directors, executive directors, they don't look at the X's and O's, the dollar bills, the what does a contract for health mean for somebody who's not a top 10% guy. They're going to look for everything else. And so I think this is good for the PA that Tony Clark's not involved in these negotiations, especially at this crucial of a time. But I do wonder how it's going to work because the owners are dead set on this salary cap situation. It doesn't seem to be budging, and players in there are kind of upset. They're going to be like, well, I'm a guy that's going to be coming up for this. Is it going to work out? I don't know. But the last lockout was 95, 94, 95. So it's bound to happen, I guess. It's kind of how it always works with these labor contracts is you get something changes in the market and one side doesn't want to shift on it. And you just have to negotiate that around that. And unfortunately, too many very rich advisors, consultants are going to get involved. Scott Boras, directly looking at you.
Rich advisors getting involved. Where have I heard this one before?
Exactly. No, anytime agents get involved, and especially for guys that are agents on both sides of the conversation, it screws with everything. So it's going to be interesting to see. Good, but like I said, Tony Clark's replacement is a good replacement. And honestly, it shifts the conversation around the PA's position to being less bullheaded and more thoughtful when it comes to these contracts. So I think that's going to be helpful. I think for the players to buy in, I think it's also going to mean for the ownership, they're going to be a little more willing to talk to somebody like Bruce Meyer than Tony Clark, who, while he's a legend in the game, he was never really involved in negotiations anyways. So at least now it's like Meyer has the face and the position. So it should work out a little better.
Absolutely. If it teaches you anything, just don't do it. That is just whatever you're thinking, or just don't do it.
Dude, here's the deal. If you're gonna promise and take vows, stick to them. If you ever feel like you're gonna question those things in the future, don't do it. especially if you play pro sports. Just don't put yourself in that position. Stop.
Don't do it.
I'm not encouraging it anywhere, but like, especially if you're an athlete, if you're a public figure, don't. The money is more important, brother. I promise you, the money is more important.
Don't do it. Don't do it at work. Don't do it with your sister-in-law. Like, and he managed to do all three of them. So you know what?
And don't do it while you're still married. That's number 4.
Well, that was part of don't do it, but like in general, like just don't be a Tony Clark. That's the only way we can describe it at this point. Right? That's the
baseball players, man. You need to think. I was, I was a huge baseball player. I have a lot of good friends that played in the minors, but man.
Well, you know what? While baseball might be one of your favorite sports, you can always transition to have your favorite sport be a different one, as we can head over to football, but the national football is the FIFA World Cup is around the corner. And well, as it is every single time this happens, it's very worrisome, but especially now because it's in the United States of America. World Cup funding, a red flag at Gillette Stadium. Foxborough is fighting for clarity is the headline, because they're requesting $8 million to cover manpower and capital expense items, basically to help prepare them for it, threatening to withhold the entertainment license for 7 scheduled matches. But don't worry, there's more. That's not just Foxborough being Foxborough, throwing a temper tantrum over Bob Kraft and Bill Belichick. We also got in Kansas City, in less than 4 months, we will have the World Cup here. Kansas City lawmakers reviewing a state of disaster emergency declaration, trying to bolster security and transit infrastructure, considering you are going to have a whole lot of people around. And, well, good luck getting them around there. And not to mention Kansas City, during their Super Bowl parade, very unfortunate incident a couple of years ago. They really want to make sure nothing like that happens on this stage as well, just as much so. So a lot going into that. Another big topic of conversation with the World Cup has been the ticket prices. And, well, here's the graphic just to point that. We're not going to go through every single one of them. So the people listening on audio, I'm sorry, I will not read you everyone. But some of the main highlights here is for opening match of Cat 1, 2022 ticket price, a $618 ticket. Yeah, this year that's going to cost you $27.35. Yes, that's $2,735, not $27.35. For a final match of Cat 1, that would have cost you $1,600 in 2022 in Qatar. Well, this year it's going to cost you $6,370. And the cheapest match, group stage matches for Cat 4, would have cost you $11 in 2022. Now we're looking at $100 for group matches. So there's a lot of worries with the World Cup. Like we mentioned, though, it's going to be fine. It's still going to happen, but this, among many, many, many other reasons, to kind of have some of the people on ice a little bit about what's going to happen moving forward, I'd imagine. So we have some concerns either way. If everything goes according to plan, I would love to be there front and center, but there's a lot to worry about heading into it, feels like.
Yeah, as somebody who won a ticket draw and then had to choose my tickets, and then seeing the prices of the tickets this year and seeing how much it was for the very nosebleed of the nose. Like, so Cat 4, for people that don't understand the categories, there's Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4. Cat 1, 2, and 3, those are going to be your lower bowl moving up to the center and then behind the goals. Cat 4 is your corners behind at the top row of every stadium. So you're in the very corner, very top. In one stadium that is in the U.S., there are 120 Cat 4 tickets total that were released. They were sold out in 5 minutes. And those were the first tickets sold for that stadium. So I turned down my ticket confirmation because I'm not paying that much money, period. Just because you consider the U.S. and consider the traveling in the U.S. and how big it is and how much it costs to get around. It's not cheap to go from one place to another. The fact Kansas City is boycotting because of transportation, I can tell you it's not going to change anything. Like, them getting transportation funds from the federal government isn't going to change anything between now and July. And the reason why is it takes time for those funds to come through. It takes time for those funds to get allocated. And then it takes time for the infrastructure and transportation stations to be built for that to work. So Kansas City, I'm sorry, this was a little too late. Forget about it. You screwed the pooch on this one. Sorry, guys. You got to figure this one out elsewhere. Like, you have to shut down public streets and allow only travel in. I mean, heck, I've been to exhibition matches in the middle of the summer for European teams coming over, like Liverpool. And in Charlotte is not a great transportation city when it comes to public transportation. But you know what they do? They shut down blocks around the stadium so you can get in and get out, and it's all walking only. So you have to take these birds and other utility things to get to the area, and then you're walking around. Unfortunately, there's not great infrastructure for transportation in America to begin with when it comes to public transportation. You got 5 cities that probably have decent transportation. They're not clean, so sorry about that. This is no surprise to me that there's issues with transportation. There's no surprise to me that the Foxborough situation is what it is, because those should have been things that were included in the selection ceremony and in the selection process for these cities, are these type of money situations when it comes to security, when it comes to facilities and staffing. And if there's something new that's popping up, it's because they selected a city just because it's an NFL city, or they selected a city based on something else happening in behind the scenes, which is no surprise that FIFA has questions about how things were selected in their career. Nothing about this surprises me when it comes to the World Cup and problems with host cities leading up to the World Cup. And the fact that there's 7 games being played in Foxborough, Massachusetts, that by itself is already blasphemous, because why? Why you can put 32,000 fans is the max seating for those, maybe 22,000, 28,000. I'm not even sure how big Gillette Stadium is anymore after the refurb, but it's not big. It's not massive. You have college football stadiums that are much more massive and in bigger cities that can handle these infrastructure conversations. I'm looking at Ann Arbor, an international school where there's a lot of international students at it. I'm looking at Columbus. I'm looking at Cleveland, Ohio has a better infrastructure and regional public transportation than you have for Foxborough, Massachusetts, where there is no public transportation for the stadium. Like, you can't just go from Boston to Foxborough easily. It's a drive, and especially on game day, it's an hour plus drive. So this doesn't shock me in the least. What's going to shock me is if this somehow gets figured out before the Olympics in 2 years. Like, this was going to be a disaster to begin with when it came to infrastructure, transportation, when it came to the World Cup. We talked about this last year and the year before that when we talked about World Cup conversations coming to the U.S. And we said that, maybe it could work if they could figure out their transportation. People from other countries aren't about to walk in here and accept the fact that they have to fly from one side of the country to follow their team to the other and have to pay $600+ for that flight. They're not going to accept that. They're not going to accept the fact there's not a train transportation option that is feasible or that takes less than a week to get across the country. They're not going to accept the fact that there's buses that are maybe the most cost effective. Unfortunately, you don't know what's going to happen. There's no dedicated bus lanes on our interstates. There's no dedicated anything transportation wise. If you guys can't tell, I'm very passionate about the fact that the World Cup should not have been as spread out as it was in the U.S. Because we screwed this up every single time. It's going to be great when the actual games start. The on-field performance is going to be good.
The logistics are going to be a nightmare.
Minus the water breaks that are going to be mandatory again, and the complaints about the heat and the temperature are going to be there again. Minus those, it's going to be a good time. It's just, unfortunately, that's a big part of the experience. It's a big part of why the World Cup won't come back to the States for probably another 40 years until we get our own personal infrastructure and public transportation figured out. And that's my policy for how I'm running for president in 10 years. So there you go. I'll get our transportation figured out so I can become president, get it all solved, and we'll bring a World Cup back to the United States within 40 years. There you go. But no, honestly, this doesn't surprise me in the least. I've watched the World Cup go through so many problems every 4 years when it comes to the lead up to the World Cup. It's always the last 6 months, whether it be Qatar or South Africa 2010, Brazil. There was always concerns. So no surprise.
So what I'm hearing, but to take away from all that, everybody, make America transportation again. That is your coin for president 2036 tagline.
Make it easier for us to travel. That's it. That's all I ask. If I need to go from Cleveland to New York City or Cleveland to Washington, D.C., which is a 5.5 hour drive through the Pennsylvania Turnpike, which costs $120, which is blasphemous, I should just be able to pay for a plane ticket or a subway or a high-speed rail line to go from one place to the other for $50. That's it. I should just be able to do that and get there in 3 to 5 hours. That would be fantastic. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for anything crazy. Imagine how many like Amtrak train lines or private train lines. You know what, Elon, you got enough money. Go spend it on this. Like, save us some travel. Let's not go to space right now. Let's just figure out how to get from Cleveland to freaking Washington, D.C. without having to drive the turnpike. That's what I want to know. That's it.
Yeah, he's got some other things to worry about in the meantime. So we're not going to dive too deep in that. But let us know. Let us know down below what you all think about the World Cup coming forward. Are you excited about it? And what do you think is going to be the biggest? What do you think is going to be the messiest point? That's what I hear. What I want to hear what Beal said. Like, what do you think is going to be the messiest part? Is it going to be the transportation logistics, the water breaks, other miscellaneous factors? Let us know down below what you or perhaps just if the U.S. gets bounced early, then like what's the turnout going to look like as well? That's what I'm curious about too, because it's not a whole lot of countries get easy access to here. So that's what I'm curious about too, is how many people are coming in to see it and are going to, that's what I'm going to be curious about.
Just remember, 3 host countries this year. It's the first chance that a host country has to not get out of the group stage because there's 3 of them. And thankfully, all 3 of them are in pretty decent groups, so they should get out. But you never know. Maybe it will get one of the group stages. One of the host city or host countries won't get out of the group stage for the first time in I don't know how long.
Let's kind of hope not, because we all know exactly who it's going to be if it happens. So let's really hope it doesn't happen. And we'll leave it at that one. Yeah.
Definitely Mexico.
You're not supposed to call that. No, you don't call them out now. Like, damn.
Sorry. I thought we were trying to get click. I'm trying to get. Look, I'm already getting canceled for stupid comments. I'm at least this time. I'm gonna take the USA Mexico soccer rivalry and I'm gonna run with it for a minute. But yeah, that's my only jab I can take at Mexico for the next 365 days.
That's a good time to transition into the main event. And for our main event of the show, we're talking football, but we're not talking about football. We're talking about the football that, well, literally only 50 small states of the entire world call football, basically.
And Canada.
Excuse me, and Canada.
And Ireland. And
Ireland calls soccer football. Like, they get it right. So my point being, the game that's named after football, where you don't really use your foot, most people complain the most about the people who use their foot relentlessly because they're 137 pounds and cost games, and everyone cries about it. Yet that's part of the game and part of the name.
Kickers are people.
NFL, I agree, and that's why I'm mad that people complain about kickers, yet they demand to be called football. But I digress. The NFL Combine, about a week away, which means it's that time of the year. Draft season is semi-officially underway, kind of in a way, not really. Right now it's mostly fun, but fun with a twist is we're going to be talking about our top 10 NFL draft prospects before the Combine. So we don't have the measurables. We don't have the looking over. We haven't started the breakdowns. This is just, yeah, these guys stuck out when I binged on YouTube TV Squad Box for the last 5 months. So these are mostly just going to be players we stand out, we think are our top guys going there before we get the measurables and all the other stuff. Kelcey, I'm going to let you lead the way. We're looking at your top 10. I'm going to have you break it down for us. Take it wherever you want to go. Let us know.
All right. So I'm going to start at number 10. I'm going to go with a guy from my school. Yes, and I can say we with this one. Keldrick Falk, the edge out of Auburn. This is the only time I can ever say we when it comes to sports. So it's like I actually have a rooted interest here. But yeah, I think Keldrick Falk as an edge. Yeah, it was fair. But a little 16 years too late.
Never die.
Yeah, exactly. You never die. Never stop being an Auburn man. But no, Keldrick Falk, the edge out of Auburn. I think he's a guy that is very interesting to me for the big board. I think he's a top 20 prospect and a top 10 really looking at it. I think especially from the edge position, he should be a top 3 guy, top 4 guy. So it really just depends on where you rank the edges overall. For me, I have him as number 3 on the edge group, but I have my edges ranked very high in this draft class. So I do have him at number 10. I think he's a very interesting prospect. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to climb, and it's maybe even fall, but I think he's going to show at the Combine that he's a guy that needs to be reckoned with when it comes to that edge position. He's going to have a career, and especially with the way the NFL is going, you don't have to be that big, strong, fast rush edge anymore. You can be a skinnier, slimmer edge, and you can also still get pass rushes. Look at Max Crosby. He slimmed down and got better. So things like that are kind of what I look at with Keldrick Falk, where he has every opportunity in my eyes. So he's my number 10. Number 9, Peter Woods, the defensive interior. Honestly, they didn't give him a regular position, so it's defensive interior. So we'll roll with that. That means nose guard or defensive tackle, and he fits the mold out of Clemson. 6'3", 310, and strong, fast, sums him up pretty well. Everything I watched him, he was probably one of the lone bright spots for me for Clemson this year. We all know my distaste of their offensive side of the ball. So yeah, for me, it's Peter Woods from that Clemson team was probably the top piece. And I think he's been that good. And especially when you look at how to stop the run in the NFL. I think he fits that mold. But also get a pass rush up the middle, I think is something he's good at as well. So we'll see how he does at the combine. It's going to be a lot of questions on his speed, a lot of questions on his size. How's that breakdown of muscle to fat for fat guys? That's always a conversation. How old has he been? Blah, 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 blah. There'll be things to see. So we'll see how it goes. Next up is Arvell Reese, which I probably have him ranked a little differently than most. He's a little bit lower on my board. That's just because linebackers never go high in the top 10 of the draft usually. I have a hard time putting any linebacker in the top 10. But Arvell Reese was easily my best linebacker, and he was on the board. So I was like, all right, you're going here. It could be proven wrong, but as far as everything I saw from Arvell at Ohio State, it just made sense for him to be on this list. So yeah, that's why he's sitting at number 8. Number 7, the best running back in the draft, Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. Enough said. Number 6, my best receiver out of the draft, Carnell Tate. I think he has every measurable there for being a next level receiver coming out of what is the current wide receiver U. I don't think it's a question anymore. Ohio State has been breeding these receivers to come out, and we have 2 more years of these top tier receivers before that train is gone, because that train has now moved to South Florida. But I think you have still 2 more years of Ohio State receivers being a top tier level, and Carnell Tate's kind of carry that on. Number 5, Francis Maiago. He is a big man, strong man, and he was the only bright spot I saw on that Miami team where I really, really was just like better than everybody else, hands down. He's the best offensive tackle in this draft, was what my opinion was from watching him in game. And sometimes it's the team, sometimes it's the matchups, sometimes it's what it is. We can say whatever we want about Miami, but one of the bright spots was Maiago, and yeah, that's why he's here. Number 4, best safety in the draft, in my opinion, Caleb Downs. I think we've talked about him ad nauseum during the season, so just keep it short and sweet. Has been in my top 10 since preseason. Played like he's a top 10 guy, and barring some kind of crazy situation at the combine, is a top 10 guy, and it should be a top 5 draft pick in my eyes. Number 3 is the second best edge out of Texas Tech, David Bailey. If you haven't watched this man play, that is a man. That is not a small boy. That is a man. And honestly, he could probably slide to the DT position if you ever needed him to. I don't like it. I like him as an edge, truthfully. I think everything he shows, his strength, his power, his speed, are next level. Second only to a guy who was in the national championship game as far as the edge position goes. But I think David Bailey is a very, very competitive conversation for being a top 3 guy, and maybe not even top 3 on some boards. We'll see how he does at the combine. He's going to be a guy that I look at the strength and the bend. So the O-ring tests as kind of his question, how he does in those. But we'll see how that goes. Number 2 is the quarterback everybody's been talking about. Obviously, that is Fernando Mendoza. Yeah, it is what it is. A 2-star guy that's turned into number 2 overall guy on most combine boards, maybe number 1. I know he's not really going below number 3 on very many boards. So top 3 guy in this draft, barring something crazy. I don't know how much he's even going to work out at the combine. Probably going to throw a little bit, and that's probably it. I'm really intrigued to see what his speed is. He's not Peyton slow, but he's also not like Lamar fast. He's somewhere in the in-between. I feel like he could pull a Jared Zabransky type of situation where he's running like a 4.6 situation, which is very good for a quarterback like his stature. But yeah, I'll be interested to see with Mendoza. I do want to see him run the 40, though. Honestly, that's all I want to see from him. I don't care about the routes. I don't care about all that. That can be solved down the road if there's any issues. I just really want to see him run. And I know that's silly to say for a guy that looks like Fernando Mendoza and runs like Fernando Mendoza runs, but I'm just very intrigued to see it. And number 1 on my board is the best edge rusher, the guy that was in the national championship game giving everybody hell throughout the season. That's Ruben Bain. I don't know where people have him ranked, but if it's not in the top 5, I have questions for you and what you've been watching all season, because this guy has been a disruptor. He's been a destroyer. And honestly, I don't know of an edge rusher that could really stand up to, except for maybe David Bailey, depending on the measurables at the end of the day. But I think performance on the field, Ruben Bain did enough to be that guy for me right now, going into the combine at least. So
I like it. I think a lot of them make sense too. Keldrick Falk, I think, has a lot of the not going to say Nick Benito because that's the low-hanging fruit there, but I think he's the guy that in the right spot. There's a lot of talent to work there yet. I think he has a very high ceiling. I think he can meet that in the right spot as well. I don't think you plug and play and he's immediately a dominant force, but I do think in certain scenarios he's going to be hell on wheels if he's in the right spot and is able to grow. Peter Woods went from top 5 projected to start the season and now still in the top 10 for you as well. We'll see how he fluctuates a little bit. I think if he has a good offseason, I think that'll get him right back up there. I won't spend too much time on it since we do have some overlap as well. I will say Carnell Tate is going to be very interesting because he's kind of the antithesis of Emeka Egbuka last year, where Emeka didn't have a lot of the measurables. He was just a weirdly good football player that got drafted, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And then suddenly he cooks for half the season before the offense implodes in itself. Kind of similar to what JSN did, just JSN, people forget about what he did his last full healthy year. And so where Carnell Tate's probably going to run a 4.3 at 6'4", he's going to terrorize safeties down the field almost out of the gate. So once again, same thing. If he goes to the right spot, we're like, yeah, go be out there somewhere. We got you. Yeah. And a guy who can get the ball out there, I think he can make an instant explosive impact. Like a guy who scores 2 touchdowns in the first week of the season, it's like, oh my gosh. And your fantasy team, if you start him, it's like, oh my gosh. Then maybe it'll taper off of it. But the right spot, I think Carnell Tate could be awesome. The wrong spot, I worry. That's what I think of with him. But as we know, Ohio State receivers, even if they always are going to be at least fine.
They're still pretty good.
They're like the worst case scenarios, they'll be fine. Best case scenarios, they'll be offensive player of the year. So I mean, that's a very high bridge though. Or actually worst case scenario is they're awesome, but they're stuck on the Jets. But then worst case scenario is they're just all right. But I'll go ahead and jump into mine really quickly since we have a lot of similarities. I'll go from the bottom to top as well. Number 10, Mekhi Lemon. Very smooth and out of his breaks. Very good. Gets the ball. Very good hands. Very good when he gets the ball in his hands. I think he's just very, very complete. He's a guy that I think could play a lot of the Z receiver at the next level. Some project him going to the Rams, and I think that would just be unfair for everybody to pair him with Puka and Devonta Adams and Matthew Stafford and crew. So I hope that doesn't happen. It would keep him there, but I don't like it. Please don't do that to the rest of us. Next up, I got a couple of tackles. I got Francis and Spencer Fano. Everything you said about Francis, I echo. He is a mammoth of a man. Good luck getting around him. As long as he keeps his feet, as long as he's able to continue to work on his feet and making sure that kind of gets to his different landmarks, making sure he's getting where he needs to be, I think he'll be just fine. He's a 3-year starter. He's absolutely huge. Sometimes he's almost too huge, I guess. And when you're that huge, you'd want him to be a little bit stronger in some spots, but I think he'll be fine, especially if he goes to a team with a halfway decent offensive line coach. There's a lot to like there. Spencer Fano, I like just a little bit more. He has a similar thing where he'll need to get a little bit stronger in some spots, but I love the 3-year starter. I love the time playing both tackle spots. We know what Utah does really well. They run the blood out of the rock in a lot of different ways. I really like him when he gets into the run game. He gets off the ball quickly. He runs through things. I like what I see. And this is obviously not a watch back with him. This is just stuff where we're watching a casual play. It's like, oh, who is that mammoth of a guy killing somebody? Then you take note and continue to watch him. So David Bailey, I really like, and I have him lower than some, but it's not because of him whatsoever. He was outstanding this year, and I think he might be arguably the best true edge in this class, and I could see him climbing right up the ranks for me. This is just a preliminary spot. I am a big fan of his. I think he does a lot of things very, very well. He's a little mixing with the speed to power, I think. Like using the power to go with his finesse approach will help him a lot, especially against the run. I think that is one area that hurts him just a little bit since he's about 250, I believe. So as a true edge, not undersized, but when you have Francis and a tight end double teaming him, that kind of puts him in a very, very tough spot. So I think that'll be one area to work forward to, but I think he's going to make an impact in natural pass rushing situations almost right away. Like third downs, whoever takes him right away, he's going to be a pain in the butt for tackles.
Arvo Reese, Raven.
Shoot, that's going to happen too, and it's going to. And now Jesse Minter's going to get his hands on that guy, and then great, we got a problem. Just what we needed, another problem in Baltimore. But before I get lost into the thought of that ruining my day, the next one I'm looking at is Arvell Reese. This is a weird one because we have 2 years of real production for him. This is a little bit of projection because I'm also projecting him, as you mentioned, as a linebacker. I'm projecting him as a full-time edge, where we saw a lot more of him this year. Once again, same bill as undersized. But like last year, he was not really an edge at all, just a true linebacker and was fine. This year, he got 6.5 sacks while he was rotating in, kind of in the way that defense used him. So we're not going to say Micah Parsons because I'm not going to get yelled at for this.
in the future because I don't think he's quite that freaky or Nick Bonito freaky. But I think in the same vein,
that is literally Nick Bonito's storyline. Is he's still listed as a linebacker even though he's more edge now?
Exactly. I want him to be used almost full time as a pass rusher. Maybe you put him in coverage from weird situations on it sometimes, but I don't want him playing stand up traditional linebacker. I don't need him being Fred Warner. I need him being some form of Benito, that sort of thing. Speaking of Fred Warner, though, I want Sonny Styles to play that exact type of role. Is he Fred Warner? No, but I want him to play that role at the next level. He's shown the ability to rush the passer, which is crazy because last year he had 6 sacks when he was off the edge, 100 total tackles, 5 pass deflections, forced fumble. This year they kind of rotated that and had Arvell Reese rushing a little bit more and using Sonny Styles in a variety of ways. Still got 83 tackles, 3 pass deflections, a sack, a forced fumble, and a pick. He could do just about everything you want from that position. I love the versatility. Are you going to take him in the top 10? Almost assuredly not. Linebackers don't go that high unless they are Patrick Willis or Devin White. There's something freaky like that. But you mentioned a Ravens pick. That'd be something for him. Or Kansas City, probably at 9, might think about it if all the edges are gone.
Yeah, Cowboys pick.
The Rams, even though the Rams don't give a what about linebackers, but if they just decide, let's have fun with it. Like he's somebody that he's going to be someone that we look at it, it's like, wow, he shouldn't be drafted this high. Someone's going to take him, and then he's going to be awesome. It's like, wow, how did he drop to them? It's like, well, positional devaluation just a little bit sometimes comes into play.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, 3 Ohio State players in a row, and speaking of player positional devaluation, Caleb Downs might be the best player in the draft, arguably. His very complete versatility to play safety, nickel, corner, a little bit of everywhere. Downside is his versatility, while it is a strength, it is also considered kind of a weakness sometimes when it comes to the draft box. They always look at it like, well, who is he? What does he do? Like, what is he? He's 6 foot, 205 pounds, very good tackler. He reminds me a lot of Devin Witherspoon, but with a little bit of, it's like Nicky Manwari and Devin Witherspoon merged together, but a little bit less athletically freaky than those two. Where you put him on the nickel, he'll get you like 3 sacks and 3 picks any given season. Maybe Kenny Moore and Devin Witherspoon's the thing I'm looking for, something like that.
Honestly, who he reminds me of is Julian Love.
You could do that as well, too. I think
because Julian Love had that combo coming out of college situation where he was a good mix of corner, safety, nickel, could just go get you the ball in any way, shape, or form, and he will drop his nose and tackle anybody. He has that same sort of build, maybe not exact, but it's very similar in that nature.
And in the same vein, he's a little bit small when he gets matched up with tight ends. I can see in a lot of cases he could just be in a tough spot when you have to chase 6'5" tight ends up the field. Just gets outmatched in a lot of ways. His tackling, while good, could be a little inconsistent, like the little nitpicky, but I still think he's awesome. I think he's another one of those almost a Ravens-esque feeling pick where he's just going to go to a team that probably he's going to be a very good positional value pick for someone probably in the teens, if I had to guess, maybe like in the 10, 11 spot. Kyle Hamilton, exactly what he was a few years ago, where he ended up being a luxury pick for the Ravens and was awesome. Caleb Downs is going to be a luxury pick for someone that's going to be great. Next up, I do have Fernando Mendoza at pick number 3. I like him a lot. I don't necessarily love him. Is that what I would probably do in this point is we're going to compare him to a couple of years ago when we had 6 first-round quarterbacks because that's the current benchmark we have. We're basing this also what our draft board was then, not what we know in hindsight, obviously. He's probably QB4, maybe 5, give or take in that class, because I still think the top 3 stay the same because they were all super freaky. Like Jaden, Caleb, Drake, all were a lot more freaky. I think he's in that Bo Nix-esque category, which is still good. I liked Bo Nix. I was the weirdo who actually liked him. So you know what? That's not an insult coming from me. I liked Bo Nix. Even though we turned the Bo Nix experience. I still think
for obvious reasons.
And well earned. He earned it. Don't get me wrong. But I think Mendoza is really good. I'm trying to think of a good, maybe like Baker Mayfield without the tomfoolery, I guess. Like he can move a little bit, like you said, not a huge runner. He sees the field very well. He processes very well from what we could see. He's got a good arm. The back shoulder fade accuracy is second to none. He is so damn good at that already. He throws inside the numbers. He doesn't have the Michael Penix conundrum where he can only throw outside the numbers. He can stretch all parts of the field, which still amazes me how good Michael Penix is at throwing an out route. But he threw a total of 10 passes inside the hashes last year, literally, for an entire season. But I digress. So I think he can hit every part of the field. The question I do have is coming out of that offense where it's so RPO-centric. Like so many of the reads are basically it's a run and then you flick a slant if they come crashing down too hard. And so we'll see. It depends where he goes and how the offense is run. He almost feels OCD-ish enough in his personality traits that I think it won't matter where he goes. I like him a lot. I think he's definitely QB1 worthy of first round pick. I wonder about him being freaky, but I think in the right, put him on the Raiders. I think he'll be fine, especially if they somehow get him like DJ Moore. So I'll just get him a receiver that you could kind of throw the ball a back shoulder fade to.
I'm going to say something that might be completely blasphemous here.
Probably.
But you might hate me forever. Mendoza reminds me of Andrew Luck.
They're both nerds.
Incredibly accurate, incredible, underrated athleticism. They just want to win, and their IQ for football is 10 times above anybody else. And I think you build those. The difference is the build for Fernando versus the build for Luck are different physically. But I think you take the skill level, the accuracy, the IQ. He has that part of the game, which is not easy to teach a quarterback, and you can teach them the physical pieces. And I think that's something with Luck. He came in with very good physicality. Mendoza is going to have to build the physicality at the next level. But I think from the cerebral side of the game, he has a lot of Andrew Luck tendencies, and he's just as deadly accurate as Andrew Luck was. And he won a Heisman unlike Luck. So
there's only so much you can do when you have to go against Cam Newton and RG3. Like let's not be twisted. If Mendoza wins his Heisman with 30 total touchdowns, let's not get tripping.
Hey, I'm just saying.
I have him at number 3, and you're making it sound like this is blasphemous now.
No, that's who he reminds me of, honestly, as I'm looking at coaches. Like, and this is something we'll talk about later on, but just like I'm throwing it out there now, so it's on record that I said it going into the combine. So when we hear it at the combine, man, he reminds us a lot of Andrew Luck at the combine. He just isn't as weird looking as he's not as stocky as Andrew Luck was. Like when we hear that, it's gonna be like, oh, well, Kelcey said that already. So I'm just putting it out there. So when I get hate on the internet tomorrow, in 2 weeks, they'll be like, see, I told you guys. Even the professionals feel this way.
I'm feeling generous. I'll give you a diet Andrew Luck comparison. We'll go with that one. Like
he's definitely Andrew Luck after his career build wise. There's no doubt about it. Like he is build as Andrew Luck now and not Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford, but his abilities are
they have some similarities. I do think the offensive, the acumen, the pre-post snap things are a little bit different, and I think one of them also ran the same 40 as Cam Newton, was built like a horse. Which we'll have to see. Maybe Fernando Mendoza and surprise us and runs a 4.5.
That's why I said I want to see his 40, man. That's why I said it. I want to see his 40.
I like him. I think, assuming he goes to the Raiders, I think there's a lot to build off of there if they don't screw it up. Next up, I got Ruben Bain Jr. at number 2. There's a lot to like. Speaking of horses, he is a horse. He's 6'3", 280-ish, give or take. He's an absolute unit. He was incredibly productive as well during his time at Miami. Always in good using hands and feet. Great coaching, Jason Taylor as one of the coaches on the Miami sideline. Very good at crashing around the corner. Does a good job mixing up speed, power, using a variety of different tools in his toolbox. Really, the only concern I have that I can see him dropping is there is concern about him having short arms, which has an edge that's kind of a cardinal sin. Like you can be fine with short arms, but you won't find in the last 20 years, there's been no edge rushers with an arm length shorter than 33.5, I believe is what the number was. None of them have even cracked double digits. And I think they are worried he'll be a 32.5, 33. So that's really nitpicky. Like just because if the offensive line can hit you first and you can't use your hands in that situation, you're at a disadvantage. So that's the only real thing. If his arms are fine, then I have a lot fewer weaknesses than other things like using counters and stuff like that or stuff he'll learn. But he's huge, he's giant, and I presume he's going to run fast, and he's been very well coached by Jason Taylor. So there's a lot to love there. I like him a lot. At number 1, I'm putting Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. He has a lot of Bijan Robinson coming out from a couple of years ago. He doesn't really his weakness was Notre Dame. Like that was literally the weakness is they didn't actually give him the ball for a few weeks. And they're like, oh, wait, yeah, let's give him the ball. So much to the point where they had to give him a breather, and they found out that his backup was actually pretty good and is now a top 4 running back as well. Just like Rashawn Johnson ended up being with Bijan in that class. A lot of teams had his backup as the 3rd best running back in the draft. Just like we have here with Jeremiah Love. He can catch the ball incredibly well. He runs between the tackles. He runs outside, breaks tackles, runs through them, sees the field, doesn't stammer, get stuck. When there's nothing there, he's very patient. He doesn't have Trent Richardson syndrome where he runs the opposite way every time there's a hole. We saw his ability as a receiver, which I think is very, very underrated. It really come out this year because they needed it on their run to not quite the playoffs and then sitting at home. But I think Jeremiah Love did just about everything you can want. He's not going to go top 5. He's very much a luxury pick. I think the Raiders really prove that you take a running back if you have anything else in place, because running backs raise the ceiling, but they don't really raise the floor. So if your floor is already in the dirt, they're not going to get you too far out of that, if that makes sense. But what they could do is if you're in the middle, they could push you up a notch. So, gosh, I hope the Chiefs don't take him for the sake of the AFC West, because even that, I just feel like that's going to be a problem, especially if they can rearrange the salary cap and fix some other things. So I love, for no pun intended, I love Jeremiah Love. I think there's a lot to like about his game. I don't think he truly has a weakness right now as a prospect, unless he ends up running like a 4.7. And then I'm going to be like, wait a minute. How did you run away from people at Notre Dame this entire time? What is going on?
That's fair. By the way, I looked up some stats on okay, first of all, let me say I love your Jeremiah Love positioning. I didn't put him that high because running backs are never weighted that high in the NFL draft. And that's just the whole reason why. He's still a top 10 guy. I just don't have him that high for probably the bias reason of him being a Notre Dame guy. But I was curious, so I looked up the stats for the last year for both Andrew Luck and Fernando Mendoza, just because it's important. It was important to the conversation. So Andrew Luck in his final year in college, 70.7% completion rate, 3,338 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Fernando Mendoza's national championship year, 72% completion rate, 3,538 yards, 41 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. So statistically, better final season in college. Very similar.
How many games did he play, though?
Oh, look, hey, whatever. 13 games is what this is for Luck. For Mendoza, what, 16? 16 games.
So it had a little bit more to work with.
So basically dead even. Like, honestly, I look at it as basically dead even when you take away those extra 3 games. That's it. That's all I'm saying. He threw less interceptions too. So
one of them for the team that went undefeated, and one for noted powerhouse Stanford.
That is fine, because if you look at the team, like, I'm not complaining about that. So if you want to go a year before that, statistically, Mendoza had everything on par with the year before for Luck. His Luck's sophomore year is similar to what Mendoza had in his last year. Cal, except for touchdowns, because, well, Stanford and Cal, at least Stanford has some receivers. Cal never had receivers. So,
yeah, Deshaun Jackson would disagree with that.
Cal never had receivers in the last 3 years. So stop with that. But yeah,
noted Stanford alum Griff Wayland has entered the chat.
Noted Stanford alum Christian McCaffrey,
running back a few years after,
but receiver his freshman
year. They were not on the same team. They were not even within like 5 years of each other,
but they were close enough.
We're pretty much splitting hairs at this point.
No. They're arguing over. On par. They are on par with each other. It is similar enough to elicit the conversation. And if the next person tells me down the road after going to see the combine, Kelcey, you're wrong, I'm just going to point to the combine and be like, literally the entire professional NFL community, who I also rag on for their takes, agrees with me. So
we're going to disagree based on the tape study with them. I do not see the same tape thing when it comes to them, but that is fine. That's okay.
I can't compete with that, because honestly, I can't take anything away from Cignetti, because if I take it away from Cignetti, that's not fair to what Sig did as a coach. Honestly, Cignetti called a much better offensive game than David Shaw ever did, or whoever Stanford's head coach was. I think it was David Shaw back then.
It was Jim Harbaugh one year and Brian Shaw the next. So it was 2 different ones.
I stand by exactly what I just said.
Exactly.
Cignetti is still a much better offensive coach and more controlling, so he wouldn't have allowed that. But yeah, I just think as far as the talent on the field goes, I think it's very similar.
I think there's a lot to like for Mendoza as well. I still stand by. I have my concerns, but I would still take him number 1 overall in a heartbeat if I'm the Raiders, and I wouldn't think twice about it. To the point I would consider trading Max Crosby to get a bunch of picks and a receiver, just because you're like, you know what? We stink. Let's at least give Mendoza a chance to be awesome, and then we'll build the rest. I love Max Crosby, but you stink, and Max Crosby can't save you by himself. And Mendoza is a child by NFL standards. Go get like 2 first-round picks and DJ Moore from the Bears for him. And then load up, and in 2 years back, okay, guess what? Chiefs were coming for you. But I digress. That's a job for another day. I just fixed the Raiders. It's fine. It's going to take a while regardless. And Clint Kubiak's probably looking at it like, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. He's looking at all the fun he's going to have with Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, and Fernando Mendoza. Or maybe keep Geno Smith, let him play for the first month.
He just needs an offensive line to actually not hold on every play or false start every play.
They have roughly the 2nd most cap space in the NFL, and I'm expecting them to use every single one of it on the offensive line. Otherwise, I'm calling shenanigans. That is how we are breaking this down.
Receiver and offensive line.
Receiver via trade, offensive line via everything else. We'll build a wall, and Sin City will pay for it. But let us know down below who you all have as your top 10 NFL draft prospects going into the NFL Combine. Things will probably change after the Combine, just because we can get some numbers and variables. But this is what we have right now. But I was going to now do it for the main event, which will now take us into Kelsey's favorite part of every show. And that is, of course, crunch time, where Fisticuffs once again takes a twisted for the turn that I did not exactly see coming. In the year of 2026, we will have two of WMMA's biggest legends going head-to-head. Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. A fight that was UFC fans begged for years they really wanted to see it. Both of them said they wanted to make it. Yeah, it's gonna headline Netflix's first MMA event. I don't know how I feel about this, because on the one hand, this is great. This is kind of cool. But on the other hand, this is 12 years late. Like, this is a long time. Ronda Rousey's last one fight was in 2015. Gina Carano's was in like 2009, I think it was. Like, this is a little bit long overdue. It's still fun. I hate Netflix getting involved in combat sports, but I also love it at the same time. Because on the one hand, you get the cool stuff like Crawford and Canelo. Then you end up with the weird stuff. I won't get directly into some, but then you end up with some of the weird things like Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Then you get this right in the middle of it. I'm like, it's interesting. I'm going to leave it at that. It's very fun. It's very long overdue, but at the same time, damn, they're both. I'm worried it's going to be ugly, and it's going to put a bit damper on how great they once really were when they were in their heyday, when they were training all the time, when they were in the fight game. And I'm really worried it's not going to look good. I mean, Ronda Rousey was 12-2. Gina Carano was 7-1. They both were undefeated until their loss, if I'm not mistaken, too. So pioneers transformed the game. The two, really, women's MMA has not been the same since either one of them been gone. It's been outside of Amanda Nunes destroying everybody with nuclear warheads in her fists. Nothing else has really stuck out to the same. So I hope it's good, but I'm worried that it's not going to be. It's just so late. This is even later than Floyd and Pacquiao at this point. So and it being on Netflix still feels weird as the first MMA event. It's weird. I like it, but I hate that I like it, but I hate it, and I like that I hate it. My emotions are uncontrolled right now, but I'll still be tuned in. So I guess that's the most important thing out of all of this.
Yeah, I find it interesting. So Ronda Rousey did a whole interview about her thoughts on this fight and how it came about. So she first said that she approached Dana White, and it just didn't work out to go back in the UFC for this. But it all started, this is her quote. It says, "I was 9 months pregnant, and I saw a video of Gina giving an interview, and she didn't look good. She gained an unhealthy amount of weight, and my first thought was, oh my God, what can I do to help? The reason why I had that thought was because she's the one woman, not only in MMA, but that doesn't owe me a damn thing, but that I owe immensely. I'm always trying to look out for what I could do for her." She said that she went on to say that when I was in a similar spot and depressed and gave up on the world and inadvertently, I think is what she was trying to say, gave up on myself, what I needed was a goal and something to reignite my passion again. I always said that Gina is the one person that I would come back to fight for. I thought, you know what? She needs this. She needs the fight. The more I thought about it, I was like, I need this. I really need this fight. And mind you, Ronda just gave birth to her third child. Gina's had the whole situation that fell out with Disney and all of the fallout from that. And at this point in time, it's two careers that, like you said, are long gone from the spotlight. But I think it's interesting from the standpoint of just why it's happening. I hope it's for the best. I hope we get to see something exciting. I'll definitely be tuning in because these were two female fighters that I enjoyed watching. Also, fun fact, you mentioned Jake Paul. He's actually his promotion team is the team handling the promotion for this. Go figure, because he has that Netflix deal. But yeah, I think it's it'll be interesting. I nothing else, I'm going to tune in. So
I'll also add this on there too, as you mentioned. This was potentially going to happen a while back, and it was offered a $1 million that it was going to happen. And Gina Carano saying, I told him, we just got to be able to sit on for 6 months. Basically, I agreed to it. Just don't say anything. Don't let me get situated. Let me do this. Sounds great. Just please sit on it. Don't say anything. And Dana White immediately spoke about it the very next day and immediately made things difficult. And it's not as much receiving a text message using explicit language, and it's not shown in here, but basically saying we got that bitch. More or less, he tanked the deal and continues to be. I digress. We're not going to go into the trials and tribulations of the Dana White experience the last handful of years, but it almost could have happened a while back. Now we're going to see it happen again. I'm very curious to see what comes of it. I hope I'm not disappointed by it. That's the biggest thing. I really hope it's not two people well past their prime. I hope it doesn't look like that. Or end in 2 seconds.
I hope it's enjoyable because I think for a lot of reasons, Ronda Rousey is kind of the face of this modern women in fighting role. She kind of, her and Holly Holm are kind of the two growth spots behind that. And then it's obviously trickled down to insert fighter here conversation. But Gina's the one that started all this, right? So she's the one that's kind of the originator of this conversation. And then Rousey and Holm took the...
Yeah, Gina started it. Ronda cranked it to another level, and it's fallen off.
That was the first headliner, right? Was with Ronda and Holly Holm. So like you saw that, and you're like, okay, now I want to see what this is like. And if nothing else, this tells you, you know, this might be some empowerment conversation when it comes to women trying to get back their life after pregnancy, because that's a conversation for many women when it comes to mental health that they can't. I don't want to speak for them, but obviously that's what the statistics say. So hopefully this is something positive to take from this, whether it's a great fight or if it's just a really good fight. Hopefully there's some positives to take for this for the next generation of female fighters or women in sports in general.
I've had a lot of things on my 2026 bingo card. This was not one of them, but we will see how it plays out. But that's going to do it here for the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us, and we will see you all again next week.